Mark,
Ah,
my dear friend.
how are you?
The happy man who owns the fishing here. Casting very elegantly over his left shoulder
It's,
to a discriminating trout. Have you caught anything?
No, I'm feeling, I'm feeling like I failed. Unfortunately.
Well, there's no disgrace in
no
disgrace in failure on a river like this. There are some big fish here, aren't there?
There's some big fish here, and it's a very favourite corner. They tend to congregate in this little bay here. But as you see, the water gets quite slack here, so the fly doesn't come round that easily. So you have to keep working.
Is the fly any good? Have we got the right fly on?
Well, I think it's not a bad fly. I think maybe I didn't put enough flagrant on it because it's quite a. Well, that's it.
That's a very neat cast. I like that.
I think there are fish there, but they're not. Nothing I can do.
The river is full of fish.
I know, very full, and it's very. I think half the problem is the river itself is too full because it's very high at the moment, and I think the fish are not coming to the surface to feed.
It's very nice to have an excuse for failing. It's almost the most important thing in fishing is to when you get home in the evening and someone says, "How did you do?" and you caught nothing, to have a reason for it. I mean, you've known this river all your life.
I think every time I fish here, I think I always learn a little bit more, and it makes you realise sometimes when you fail. Of course, it's in some ways sometimes failing is just as much of experience as succeeding.
It's good for the soul.
Yeah, because
when it was too easy, then what would the point be?
It would be boring, which is why in the mayfly season sometimes it can get dull.
The mayfly being the enormous hatch of enormous insects in early summer.
Yep, exactly.
They're too easy, or?
Well, I think I'm not sure whether they're. Yes, I think they can be too easy. Sometimes they're very because there's so much mayfly on the river that sometimes you're artificial.
But that is the time when the big fish feed really hard, though.
It is. It's exciting because some of the big fish come to the surface in that sort of 3-week period, and it's wonderful when it does happen. Well, that's a very neat cast. I like that. If I was a fish, I would be sorely tempted. I would be too. But
the whole point of it is that we're not fish.
No.
We have no idea what they think. I mean, a great question. What do fish think about? Anything?
Well, I think. I've never really thought about that before.
You've never thought about it. Very good
I think
answer.
they think about food, but then if they do, there's a lot of natural. Have you seen? There's a lot of natural fly on the water.
There's a lot of fly, but then there's always a lot of fly. There's a lot to eat on this fishery generally, is there not?
And then if they're ignoring the natural fly, why should they? I mean, you'll study this more than I have. If they're not eating the natural fly, why should they eat my artificial?
Well, I think that's a very good point. I mean, the fact is that they will be feeding somewhere, but the chances are they're feeding down rather than up, or that they may have been frightened off by your exceptionally delicate and artistic casting.
Yes, well, that's also possible, but in fact, quite likely, I think. But it could be, do you think, that by putting an artificial on, which is even more tempting than the natural fly, we might persuade them to feed when they might not otherwise?
True, that's very true.
So I thought that was
That's very true.
It's a fair point, isn't it?
It's a very fair point. And now you're doing a very nice cast over your left shoulder. There are trees behind, trees in front, and trees are a bit of an enemy to the fly caster, are they not? Or there aren't too many on.
Well, I try and make the fishing here not too easy. So we've done a lot of planting up and down the bank because otherwise it's just it's more of a challenge. Because yes, ideally I like to fish this piece out over my right shoulder. It's much easier, but then if I did, I was going to smash into the trees behind me. So
you'd have to have them all sawn down. I feel that there's something very character forming about failing at fishing. Actually, I don't like failing at all. I particularly don't like failing when I've gone a very long way in order to fish. I mean, I know you fish in Scotland quite often, and
yes, I've travelled many miles to fail once. I once flew all the way to Iceland for 3 days and didn't touch a fish for the entire trip.
But your character was in good shape when you got back.
Slightly battered. I came down to the river here and caught a fish, made me feel a lot better.